am Chris, also known cunningly by the name down at the bottom, C.M. Lowry Author. And there's a key reason why I'm called C.M. Lowry Author, which is that there is already an author out there called Chris Lowry, which is also my name, who's already writing books, and he's written about 20. And it just didn't seem to make a lot of sense to also exist in the same universe as him, also writing sci-fi a lot of the time, which is what he does, in competition. So I became C.M. Lowry, which I think puts me in pretty good company. C.S. Lewis, J.K. Rowling. There you go. I'm probably, just by putting C.M. Lowry, I'm probably guaranteed to be as successful as J.K. Rowling. Now, I have 4 viewers, but what happens when I click this is it doesn't tell me who my 4 viewers are, which I feel is not terribly helpful. I feel that is a distressingly useless piece of information. So I know my wife's watching. Hello, wife. What I'm going to do while I'm here is load up my live stream on my phone so that I can see who the other people are, which I'm sure is not the appropriate way of doing these things. If someone knows a better way of doing it, then please do feel free to mention in the comments. So Catherine has said evening. Do you have any questions for me, Catherine? What question would you like to ask C.M. Lowry Author? She's not writing anything. So that's good. I'm going to start with a little plug, actually. I'm going to use a little bit of magic here. Oh, look at that. I'm not actually going to plug that. I'm going to plug this little book here. It's from a little publishing house called Ghost Orchid Press. And they've written this rather interesting book here. It's called Home here. And what it is it's a book with 100 different stories in. So the stories are all 100 words long, and there's 100 stories all around the idea of home and horror. And yeah, what's nice is they're so digestible. Like you can read like 6 stories and go on a proper journey in those 6. But also it doesn't take you, an evening of reading. So I'd recommend that. You can find that on Amazon. You can buy the book. You can go to ghostorchidpress.com and you can find, I think it's, they have well, if you go there, it will show you what their Twitter is. But I am going to read you a poem. It's actually a poem by Emily Dickinson, who many of you may have heard of before. And by many of you, I mean 5 of you, which is exciting. Give me one more second. I don't understand why I can't see how many people there are in this live stream, but never mind. I can see there's 5, but I can't actually see what's happening, which seems very, very unhelpful. But never mind. I will, if you're here, comment. I can see the comments, so comment and say hi, and then I can say hi back at you. The poem I'm going to read is at the beginning of this anthology, and it's just really good. I'm not great at reading poetry, so apologies if this isn't perfect, but I will do my best. So remember, we're in the theme of horror and the theme of home. One need not be a chamber to be haunted. One need not be a house. The brain has corridors surpassing material place. Far safer of a midnight meeting external ghost than an interior confronting that whiter host. Far safer through an abbey gallop, the stones are chaste than moonless. One own self encounter in lonesome place. Ourself, beyond ourself concealed, should startle most. Assassin, hid in our apartment, be horror's least. The prudent carries a revolver, he bolts the door, looking a superior spectre more near. I just like the idea, really, horror's in your brain, isn't it? Like how upset and worried and concerned you are by stuff. Hello, Caroline O'Brien. Thank you for joining us. How concerned and messed up you get by stuff ultimately is in your head. I mean, we're often saying to our kids, this is definitely a shout out to my wife who's in the chat. We're often saying to our kids, you're in control of your feelings. You can get on top of things. And that is true to an extent. You can calm down your anger and you can calm down your horror, But yes, I would recommend that. So Home by Ghost Orchid Press. Very nice. So I am CM Lowry, author, and most of you, I imagine, are here because you have heard about me because of a little thing called The Die Decides. And I was going to adjust this now so it says The Die Decides underneath. But again, everything's broken. Ah, there we go. Everything's broken. Look, typing as I talk. That is genius. So The Die Decides is a book I have launched on Kickstarter. I suspect most of you have heard of it. You can see it here. If you type in The Die Decides into Google, it will just take you there magically. And there's a few people who have not necessarily quite got what I'm doing with this book. So I'll try and sell it to you in 2 sentences. 2 sentences, okay? It's a book of short, very short stories called Microfiction. Everything that happens in the book is going to be decided by me rolling a 10-sided dice. I've already had quite a lot of kickback on Facebook because I've called it The Die Decides rather than The Dice Decides. And I suppose I kind of did it because the word die. So you can use a single dice can also be referred to as a die, but the word die is quite a dramatic word as well. So that's probably what I went with there. If you have any questions you would like to ask me about the book, I've answered some of them already in the updates. So you can go down here and click updates. And I give an example of rolling dice. I could even, let's see, a video inside a video. Let's see if we can do that. Look at this. Wow, I'm impressed. So you can actually see me, if you watch that video, you can see me rolling dice and demonstrating the example. But really, what's cool about this project compared to most books that you could buy and most things you can be involved in is, as you can see here, I've got a list that I've put together. And if you back this book on Kickstarter, you get to contribute and say, well, actually, I would like to read a little story on the subject of badgers or fear or, I don't know, some other category ideas. In that video, I go through about 100 I've already had submitted. Everyone's going to be able to submit categories and themes. And then at the end of the Kickstarter, which is now tomorrow, I'm going to pause this video because it is super distracting me. I didn't think it would distract me that much. At the end of the Kickstarter, we're going to have a vote, and you're just going to be able to vote on all of the ideas that have gone in. And yeah, you're going to get to decide exactly what the dice is going to be picking from. And so the idea of it, I think I give an example of it on the page itself. It's not the most dramatically good TV, TV is it? Watching somebody else peruse a web page. But you can see here, you've got these, I don't know if I can make this bigger over here. Let's see. Oh, look at this magic. So you've got the length is decided. So I'm going to roll this 10-sided dice and say I roll a 6. It's going to be a 600-word piece. And then say I rolled a 5 here. That would be romance, and a 9 betrayal. And so you're going to get a 600-word piece on romance and betrayal. And the whole book is going to be written like that. What themes are you hoping that the dice lands on? Says Catherine. One of the categories that got submitted, and I've actually, if you go into the updates, I've written an example piece that people can read if they want to, which I called Comrades in Arms. But one of the example things that came up was on the allotment, and then it was on the theme of acceptance, and it was really fun starting a little story on the allotment, but starting a little story and knowing, because really if it's acceptance, you've kind of got to start the story not accepting something. And then, I mean, one of the beauties of microfiction is that it's really short. Like, I don't know if any of you are writers, but your average chapter in a normal book, where's a normal book? I looked for a normal book and then I picked up Dune, which, for those of you who've read it, is not really a normal book. It is quite a dense book. But in a normal book, a chapter is about 5,000 words, like 3,000 to 5,000. So 200 words is really is super nothing. And so what I love actually is I'm not sure there is a theme that I'm not excited about, because 200 words, it's just always a challenge to fit it in. Hello, Howard. There we go. Great book. I'll be honest, Caroline. I've got to about page 3. Yeah, I really need to put some time into to like really press into it. I love sci-fi. I quite like kind of space opera. I love, those of you who don't know it, Dune is a really, really renowned, it's like one of the kind of big 10 books in sci-fi. It's also renowned for having a huge range of fairly terrible sequels. So yes, I promise that I will read it at some point this year. I'm putting on my Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, I'm publicizing every book not publicizing, that's the wrong word. I'm sort of publicly acknowledging my reading, because I don't know about everyone else. Am I talking too much? Bit of pause. Let's have a pause. Am I talking too much? I don't know. As in, I don't know if this is annoying me, just constantly monologuing. Well, you knew what you were signing up for when you came on for a live stream with me. But I read a lot of books. I think in a normal month, I probably read maybe 10 to 20 books. And I often just kind of read them and then consume them and then move on to the next thing. And I'm really enjoying celebrating them a little bit more. One of the books, well, it's not even a book, it's a zine I've been reading, is a book that Martin Appleby has brought out, or a little leaflet. He runs an interesting publishing house, DIY punk rock publishing, Scumbag Press. But he runs a literary zine called Paper and Ink. But I recently read this. My wife has said that she's not a good judge of whether or not I talk too much. That means, what that means there isn't that she doesn't have an opinion on the matter, just that she doesn't think she's not necessarily fair on it. I'm going to read a little advertisement from The Edge of Hell, which is the name of this booklet, but also something that's pretty cool. It came with a beer mat with a little kind of poem bit of fiction on the back, which is super cool. I'm now going to put my non-alcoholic beer, because I'm on call tonight, on top of the beer mat. Let me read this to you. I'm nearly done. Please do throw some more questions in there if you have them, and thank you to everyone who's turned up. It's awesome. An advertisement from The Edge of Hell. Buy, buy, buy. More. Stuff. The more you get, the more you can't get enough. Consumers in a capitalist wet dream, we fight and scream to get the best deal for the things that we need the least, because the beast can't survive without us. Buying things with borrowed money, living on borrowed time in borrowed houses, borrowing more and more in the hopes that we forget that we probably don't really need any of it. So if you'd like to buy my book, yeah, I would absolutely point you towards Paper and Ink Literary Zine and a Scumbag Press. Some of the language can be a little bit, you know, not safe for work, but apart from that, it's all good. Yes, so I am nearly finished. I was only going to do a little thing here. Caroline, do you have a question about the Die Decides, or anyone, any of the other people watching as well? Hello, Howard. Oh, I didn't see your comment there. Hello, Howard. If anyone has joined who I haven't said hello to, please comment with your name, because I, for some reason, can't see anyone's names, which is a shame. So the Die Decides is coming out under Beyond Cataclysm Books, and we've got one thing we brought out this year, which is awesome. And my friend Sarah she wrote this and took the lead in putting this together. Is this book here called Paper Cuts, and it's actually a really brilliant year for it to come out. So it's a book filled with cool kind of photos of live gigs, and then people talking about the experience of live music. And she did Paper Cuts 1 last year, which was talking about things, but this one is gigs, festivals and tours. And of course this year we've not really had gigs, festivals or tours, and so it's been a really nice way of getting the whole scene. And there's like, I don't know, 50, 100 people have contributed to it, but it's a lovely way of just getting a load of people from the punk scene have written some really interesting, some pretty risque, some cool stuff. I've got an article at the end just about looking after your mental health, because those of you who don't know, I'm also a doctor. Most of you who do know that I'm a doctor know because you ask me unsolicited medical advice sometimes, but you know, you take what you can get, don't you? I'd like to show you this on our site, which is ideas. So we have ideas as Beyond Cataclysm of things that we would like to do. And oh no, that's not the way you go down. That is. And one of the ideas we have coming up is ISBN Coffee. So if you like coffee, and I do like coffee, we've partnered with an awesome coffee shop in our town, in the beautiful town of Warrington. No, that's not what I meant to do. I meant to do that one. And have got loads of coffee. Yeah, look at this. And they've all, so what he's done is he's made us 3 sets of coffee. Okay, he's done us a single, they're all single origin, but he's done us a single origin one, a single farm one. Okay, so if you're not into your coffee, okay, single origin, your average coffee is a blend. So what that means is they get coffee from the whole world, and then they just kind of throw it into a big bucket in a big factory and just blend it all together. And you tend to get, I mean, it's still very drinkable, but you tend to get something that's maybe a little bit less pure, a little bit less amazing. And then you get single origin, where it's all come from the same region, the same kind of crop type. And then you get single farm, which is really snobby. And that's where it's come literally from the same estate. And so it's like as refined as you can get. So we've got a single origin, a refined, a single estate, and then we've got a custom blend that he's done, that he's made himself out of the origins that he has. But what we're going to be doing over later on in this year is we're going to be bringing out the world's first coffee with an ISBN number printed on it. Because technically you only get an ISBN number printed on books, such as on the back of this book. But what we're going to do is we're going to cheat, and we're going to bring a book out at the same time that you can only get with the coffee. And then you can put the same ISBN number onto the coffee. So yeah, that's the plan there. But we're going to be bringing out a book about coffee, and it's going to have poetry about coffee, short prose, some stories. There's going to be a thing on the history of coffee. There's also going to be possibly a little board game that you can play with coffee beans, and some role play games that are really short. The idea is you can literally make a cup of coffee and then play some games together. So, oh no, loads of people have posted and I didn't see it. Ah, Howard, I miss having coffee with you too. Me and Howard, we don't share huge amounts in common, me and Howard. I'm very much into my football and he's into his rugby. But what we do share is the fact that we meet and drink coffee, and it's awesome. And we haven't been able to do that because of this thing called the pandemic. So I look very much forward, Howard, to spending time with you. But yeah, you should write something about coffee, and we'll put it in the zine. I've had a friend write a poem about coffee, and then draw a picture of some coffee, and then spilled coffee all over it and posted it to me to go in. So that's cool. Is it like some book I heard called Dice Man, or does the die decide the length and theme only? Thank you for that question, Caroline. Quite a lot of people on Facebook seem to think I'm ripping off a book called The Dice Man, which I've not heard, but will be reading, which is a book about a psychiatrist, I think, who rolls a dice or rolls a die, depending on how you want to take the grammar approach on that one. He rolls a dice and lets his actions be decided by what he rolls. And so I think it's a fiction story, like a novel, of a man progressively going off the rails or making good and bad decisions as he rolls the dice. That is absolutely not what my book is about. I mean, that one sounds cool. This book is going to be, if I just go back to the picture here. Oh no, that got smaller. I keep doing the wrong thing. There we go. If you have a look at this picture here, nope, I'm in the wrong section. This picture here. So this is going to be going to have a. Let me see if I can zoom in on that. Oh, if you can see there's a book, and there's a picture, and then there's some microfiction on the right. And the idea is that the die here, you can actually see just down the bottom here, it says 100 words and flame. but the idea is that I'll roll a die, and to say it says in this situation it was 100, and then it was flame, and then success. Let's say that's what the story was about. I'll roll that. So the book will consist of maybe 100 stories. It'll depend. We'll have to see what the die decides. So if I get lots of longer stories that are sort of 800, 1,000 words, there will be less stories in the book. If I get loads of 100-word ones, there'll be more stories in the book. So yes, that does that answer your question, Caroline? I appreciate that question, because yeah, about 80% of the comments on Facebook have said, why are you ripping off this idea? And about 20% of the comments have been saying, have you guys actually read the pitch? That's totally not what Chris is saying. Caroline mentions that a lot of socializing in this country centers around alcohol, which I would lose a point for now, but this is I don't know if you can see, it's written in German on there. I don't think the camera's going to want to focus on it, or maybe it is. It's just there, it says alcohol free, because yeah, well, I'm on call, and also I'm getting old now, and drinking lots of beer late at night is probably not a good idea. So yeah, I have missed socializing very much, and I've missed coffee. And it's interesting you say about games there as well, Caroline. It's almost as if you're a plant that I've put in the crowd to ask me questions, which I haven't. I don't think I know you, which is wonderful, and I'm extremely happy to have you here with us. My next Kickstarter, probably coming out quite soon in the next kind of week or so, is called, this is what I was meant to bring up a picture of. I will carry on attempting to talk whilst I multitask. We'll see if I can manage that. Let's just put it on my face while I do multitasking. The next project I'm working on is, well, so first of all, before I talk about the next project, please don't worry that I'm working on 2 projects at once. I'm not going to find myself snowed under and be completely unable to manage the task. The delivery date for the Die Decides is December. And I estimate I could get everything written in a month. So I'm giving myself plenty of spare time. The reason I am getting involved in another one is that Kickstarter run a thing called Zine Quest. They run every February, where they encourage people to write short role-play games. I don't know if anyone else in the chat plays role-play games. They are... You may have heard of Dungeons and Dragons, but they're kind of imagination play, but based around a story. And actually, Dungeons and Dragons is the classic one, but that's a very kind of formulaic one. You can just, role-play games can be a very simple idea of just, there's a game I enjoy playing with a friend called Mars Colony, and together you collaboratively create a Mars colony. Like, the first thing you do in it is you create political parties. And it gives you rules for how you do that. So the political parties in the game, you choose 2 real-life political parties, such as the Green Party and the Labour Party. And then your fictional one lands directly in the middle of that. So I think when we did it, we had like UKIP and the Green Party. So we ended up with this very, very kind of like isolationist and Green Party. But yeah, what happens is you kind of write a story together. It's an interesting idea, but it's quite a popular idea in certain spheres. And so Kickstarter does this thing called Zine Quest. I'm aware it's been 25 minutes. I'll be closing in another 5. If anyone has any more questions, please throw them in the chat. If you have turned up and I haven't said hello to you, please say hello. But yes, this is what I was going to show you. Yes, look at this. Nice and big. Look at that. So my next project after this one is going to be called, let's change the text for this one, Badgers in Space. It's going to be called, and it's going to be a role-play game for playing with your kids. And so, yes, lots of people have been stuck at home and not being able to socialise in lockdown. And you don't need alcohol to socialise. You can absolutely do it when you're stuck at home with your children. And you can play this fun game called Badgers in Space. Someone else wonderful has let me see if I can bring it up. Someone else has done some even like equally wonderful pieces of art. Let me just type this in. So I've got that. I also have Dave Brons. Shout out to Dave Brons, who is a musician, and you should look him up. Dave Brons, spelt like you'd think, Brons, on Facebook. But he's an amazing musician, and he's writing me a theme tune for Badgers in Space. So it's going to be something like a really fun guitar-y kids theme tune. So I also have this amazing piece of art here done by my friend Dickie, who is in a band called Shackleford. So if you know your Star Wars, R2D2, we have Acorn D2, Acorn D2, and Squirrel 3PO, which is probably different enough that I'm not going to get sued by Disney. Howard, this game is absolutely for big kids as well. It is definitely not just for little kids. I mean, badgers and space are fun topics for everyone. There may well be badgers in June. I don't know. Caroline, are there badgers in June? We'll find out. I'm fairly confident there aren't badgers in June, but there is space. And yes, it was my love of roleplay games and rolling dice and all of that gave me the idea for the Die Decides. So I think anyone who's backed it and is backing it and thinking about backing it will find that there's definitely going to be more of an element of game to it than you'd get with your normal book. I can't promise the best book you'll ever read in your life or anything like that, but what I can promise is there's going to be lots of cool bits of fiction, lots of fun, interesting ideas. I mean, the beauty of microfiction is if you get a book of a hundred, a book with 100 stories in, even if 10 of them aren't the best story you've ever read, you're going to find some that really grip you. And I've got a few examples of my prose on my blog at allaboutchris.org. I shall just give a link there. And so you can check out some more of my writing on there if you have any concerns that I'm not good enough. But really, what I feel and I hope is going to be the thing that really attracts people and has attracted people about the Die Decides is just that bit. Like, you get to decide what's going to go into a book that's going to get printed and that you're going to hold in your hands. That's fun. So you're going to there's already, if you are a backer, if you go into the updates section, I mean, I will send another reminder out about it, but there's a survey live on my blog, and you can go to that survey page and it will ask you to, what ideas would you like, and it gives you some ideas of what you could put, but you can submit your ideas and we're going to end up with a nice printed list of ideas, and I'm going to roll a 10-sided dice, and then we will find out what the die decides, and then I'll write it. So although the die is in charge, you all kind of are too. So there we go. It has been very nearly 30 minutes. I'm going to give it one more space for any questions. It doesn't have to be a question about books, or no, about my books. It can be a question about other books. Has anyone been reading anything that they've been really enjoying? I will give a shout out to the Animorphs series, which, even if you are not a big reader, they're great. They're actually kind of teenage kids books by an author known as K.A. Applegate. There we go, K.A. Applegate. That's another person who uses 2 letters at the beginning of their name, like myself. And the Animorphs was this series here. Let's see if we can get a nice big picture there of children turning into animals, but they're fighting off these aliens. But it's really, really good, and the books are really short, and it's out of print, and the author has said please feel free to download them for free. So in the last week I've read 10 of them, and I'm sort of in a competition with my 10-year-old to read them first. So there we go. I think I'm basically done. It has been wonderful to have you here. I was just looking because there was meant to be a way that I could share a link to the video. Not to the video. Share a link to my to the book so that you could just go directly there yourself. But like is always the way with these things, the tech has failed me. So I'm sorry about that. Thank you for coming. Have you had a good time? There's something wonderful about that empty pause when you're not talking to someone. But yeah, it would be awesome if you could share this post on your Facebook. It would only take you a minute, but just, I went to this fun live stream and this author talked too much, but he was passionate enough that I have backed his book. But yeah, you could share a link to the Kickstarter, you could share a link to this video, or you could do nothing at all and sit down and actually read Dune, which is probably what I should do. But yeah, thank you very much for coming along today. And if you do have any questions, please send me a comment on the Kickstarter page. You can follow me on Facebook as CM Lowry Author. There you go. This is a good use of this bit of text. I didn't really plan this, but this bit's actually really useful, isn't it? You can check it out on Facebook at CM Lowry Author. You can find me on Twitter at, can anyone guess where it is? Howard, can you guess where you go on Twitter? It's at CM Lowry Author, okay? And then you can find me on Instagram. Really, I don't think it's going to be pressing anyone too hard to guess that it is at CM Lowry Author. So I've got the branding sorted there. So any questions, send them to me. Honestly, when people back my project, it really does. It's so cool. I feel both supported, but also like I've kind of given someone something a little bit exciting that they can look forward to. So thank you to everyone who has supported me. And I'm going to go now, I think.